This cribbage board ended up so pretty. I really like the ancient redwood with the green epoxy. I think that was a good choice. We have a very nice decorative edge. We have the super curly redwood on the bottom. Best of all, we have a nice storage for the pins and the cards. Hey you guys, I'm so excited. Today I'm going to show you how I made this cribbage board. I recently started making cribbage boards and I've been having so much fun with it. This one, it's made with ancient redwood and it does have some epoxy on the top. You do not need to use epoxy. You can use just wood. This is what I wanted to do. And I will have templates for this available. I'll put them on the description of the video. For this one, it's about 16 inches long and about 6 inches wide, and super pretty. It does have a storage on here, and the way I did this bottom part is it has two dowels that are registered on each side. That way the top does not pivot and it stays flush. And then we have a 1-inch magnet here, so super cool. This curly redwood has so much figure on it. I thought it looked fantastic. Now when you get the templates, they would look something like this. Of course they will have the paper backing you need to remove when you get it, and one of the templates just have the holes pattern, and you can use just a drill to drill every one of these holes exactly where they are marked. The holes are they're 1/8 inch size, so you will use a 1/8 inch drill bit, and then the depth for the holes, it's about 1/2 inch. So when you purchase this template, you can get just the top if you would like, or you can get them as a set for the top and the bottom if you so choose to make a bottom with storage for underneath. The bottom part, I'm going to show you on the one with the paper because it's easier to see. So the bottom part has a whole circle, and this is where your pins will store, and then here is where your cards store. And then it has three 1/8 inch holes, one in the middle, one on each side. The one on the ends is the one where your dowel will go. I usually use a 1/4 inch dowel to register both boards. You will see it in the step-by-step tutorial that you will be watching. And right, this one in the middle is just the registration point for where to use a Forstner bit, a 1-inch Forstner bit, to make a hole for the magnet. I did use a 1-inch magnet, and I'll put those in the description below as well, the link to them if that's what you want to use. The first cribbage board I've ever made, I had 4 magnets. I had one on each side here, so I had 2 magnets on the bottom and 2 on the top, and that was way too much magnets. It was very hard to open. So putting just 2 magnets, one on the bottom and one on the top and the middle, I think that is just the perfect tension where if you drop the box, it's not gonna fall apart. They will stay together, yet it has enough strength to hold it together that you can still open it. Again, I will put a link to those templates in the description below if you are interested. And without any further ado, let's get right into it and I'll show you how I made this. Now here is the board I'm working with. It's 16 inches long by 6 inches wide. And I put my design on it, and then I used my Shaper Origin to make all the holes. In total, it took me about 40 minutes to make all the holes. The Shaper Origin is basically a handheld CNC. As you can see, I'm hovering over the hole, and then on the right side I have a green button that I push and that lowers the router bit, and then the red button, when I push it, it lifts up the router bit, and then I get to go to the next hole and repeat the procedure, and I do that for all of the holes on the design. It is really accurate and pretty fast. Here is the templates that I have for sale. They have the paper covering them. So the first thing you need to do is remove the paper, and you can use this template to make the holes with the drill press. So because I already made the holes, now all I need to do is take the paper off, and then on the side that has the holes, I will be using some double-sided tape to stick this template to my plank of wood and epoxy so I can cut it to the shape that I want it. So I'm kind of making sure that the holes will go exactly over the holes that I made with the Shaper Origin, so I don't get more space on one side or the other. And then double-sided tape, like I said, flip it over, stick it to the piece of wood, and then from there we'll go to the bandsaw so we can trim really close to the template. Here is the bottom part of the template, the same thing, just double-sided tape, stick it to the wood. And before I take it to the bandsaw, I like to run a permanent marker around the template just because that way I can see better where the edge is, so I don't accidentally cut my template. So that's what I'm doing, just using a permanent marker, tracing all around it, around the template and the insides where the card storage will be and where the pegs will be stored. Just a little trick, you could just mark it and then cut it. I like to cut with the template on. I'm not too worried if I cut the template because I can always cut another one. So bandsaw, again, trim it around it really close, but leaving about 1/8 inch to 1/16 inch around. So then later I can take it to the router table and use a flush trim bit to flush it. So then the wood and the epoxy and the wood piece, it's exactly the same size as my template. The bandsaw doesn't like to cut epoxy so well, it will dull your blades, but I do like the look of it, so I'm going for it. I'm cutting it. Sometimes when you cut with the bandsaw into the epoxy and wood, you might find surprises, like a little void that you might need to fill. So it definitely brings another challenge to it, but you know, in the end, it's all worth it if it ends up nice. So I'm about to finish making this cut here on the bandsaw. And then I'll be using a compression bit on my router table to get a very smooth edge. If you don't use a compression bit, you will be going against the grain for half of the way, so then you will get a lot of tear out. But this bit cuts really, really smoothly, so I use it pretty much all the time when I have to do a flush trim. That was the bottom part, and now I'm about to do the top part. Again, epoxy is very hard on your router bits. It will dull your bit. So if you do this for the first time, I suggest you try with just wood. Leave the epoxy for later on. And now that I have my pieces all done, I'm taking this to the scroll saw to cut the insides where the pegs and the cards are stored. And you do not need to have a scroll saw for this. You can use a jigsaw and just make sure you stay away from the edge a little bit, so then you can use the router table with the flush trim bit to cut it flush. I have a scroll saw, so I use it because it makes it really easy to make these inside cuts. Super, super easy. It just takes time and it takes work, but it's nothing too difficult. Anyone can do it. And here we are finishing this cut on the scroll saw. And then of course we are going back, like I said, to the router table with the same compression bit, and we are going to do a flush trim to smoothen this out and get it to the exact size as the template. Make sure when you enter the cut, you enter on the side grain, not the end grain. If you enter the end grain, you will get a kickback. So always, always, always enter on the side grain. Also, please note the direction I'm going. You want to go against the way the router is spinning. Otherwise, again, you will get a kickback. So now that I have both pieces, I am kind of stacking them on top of each other and decide which one is going to be the bottom, because we will be gluing another piece in there on the bottom. And then I'm using some blue tape to tape them flush to each other, because we need to drill where the dowels and the magnet will be. So I don't want anything to move. I want these two pieces to stay exactly on top of each other. And when I will be drilling, I'll be drilling through both pieces at the same time. And I'll be using a 1/8 inch drill bit, which you will see me in a second at the drill press. So my pieces are all stacked together, taped to each other, and then I'm using my template just to mark where I need to drill. And I make sure I use my marker to mark which one is the bottom of that bottom piece. Here at the drill press, I set my drill press a depth to go all the way through the bottom piece, which is in the top right now, and go about a 1/4 inch into the piece that has the epoxy. This is not the size of the dowel. Like I said, this is only about 1/8 inch, but this will mark where we need to drill the holes for the dowel and then also for the magnet. So all the way through the top piece, a 1/4 inch into the bottom piece. I'm taking the blue tape off, and you should see we have some little holes now that will mark exactly, so we can stack these guys in place with the dowels and have perfect alignment. Now when I drill the holes for the dowels, I did use a drill bit, which was not really the best. I should have just used a Forstner bit, because the drill bit, the wood was pretty soft and it kind of chipped it a little bit. So if you have a Forstner bit, use a Forstner bit. You see I am using the drill. I have a Brad's point drill bit. And for the magnet, I made a hole with a Forstner bit that is 1 inch diameter, because the magnets that I have, they're about 1 inch diameter. So that's what I did, and the drill bit for this one is 3/8 inch, because that's what I had for redwood. I actually did not have redwood dowel, so I had to make my own, and the smallest size I could make was a 3/8 inch. So that's why I'm using this drill bit. Usually for all my other cribbage boards I use a 1/4 inch dowel, but this one I went with 3/8 of an inch. Now that we have all the holes drilled, you see I'm using the Forstner bit for the magnet, and make sure you don't go too deep, but you want to go deep enough where the magnet is completely under the surface, because otherwise your box will not close. And here is my 1/4 inch redwood that I am going to glue on the bottom of this bottom piece. You can see the B marked there, that's the bottom. And that's how we keep track of all of our pieces. Using some Titebond 3 in here, with the brush I am spreading the glue, but I'm kind of staying away from the card slot and the piece slot, just because I don't want to have any squeeze out in there, so I don't have to clean it up. So generous amount of glue just away from those two areas. And then I did not really clamp this. All I did is just put it on my bench and put 2 heavy weights on it and just let it sit for a few hours. And that's how I did that part. Then when it was dry, of course, took it back to the bandsaw, cut the edges, left about a 1/8 inch around it, and then I took it to the router table and used the compression bit, the router bit, to flush trim it, just like we did before a few times. Then I used some 5-minute epoxy. This is a 2-part epoxy and it cures in 5 minutes. And I mixed these two guys together. This is the way I attach the magnets, because I want to make sure those magnets, there's no way they will pop out of there. Also, make sure you check the polarity of your magnets before you glue them in. You want to make sure that they will attract each other, not, run away from each other. And what you don't see me doing is the magnets, the side that I had to put the epoxy on, I also run them through some heavy grit sandpaper, just to scratch them a little bit, so the epoxy will really attach to them. And that's the way I attach the magnets. For the dowels, I just use a glue. I use wood glue, and put those in place and just let them all dry, and then we are ready to go for the next stage. One thing I forgot to record is up the profile of the top piece. I did put a decorative profile, and of course I forgot to push record on my phone, so I did not record that. Sometimes I just put a simple round over. For this one I wanted to do something fancier, so I did some decorative profile. The epoxy, this is about how much I put on my magnet, and just push it in and just let it sit there for 5 minutes, and it secures really easily. And then the dowels, like I said, I just use wood glue for that. Now for the finish, I use a mixture between tung oil and beeswax, and just rubbed it all over. Make sure I gave it plenty of it, because the wood was very dry and starved for oil. And then I let it sit about 15 minutes, and then after 15 minutes, when it wouldn't soak up any more oil, I came with a clean rag and wiped off all the excess. I apologize, that was my phone. And for the crevices and the holes, I used the brush to spread all that oil and beeswax. And this redwood was fantastic. There's so much curl into it. It was really, really pretty. I was very, very happy with the way it turned out. Like I said, the templates are available now at my website, skylarewing.store. And I hope this was useful to you and you learned something new. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Skylar Ewing, and I'll see you in my next video.